So YouTube, I just killed Diablo on Nightmare. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my builds that I did on Nightmare, because things changed a lot from normal to Nightmare. Things weren't easy peasy, go through, kill everything you see anymore. You had to avoid some kind of things and stuff like that. So let's start by my questing and AoE build that I ended up with, because I started with a complete different thing and I started changing things to improve things that I needed to get better. So one thing that I kept is Bola Shot. I kept Bola Shot with Thunderball, which has a chance to stun the target. Now Bola Shot is I just have it there to do damage with the chance of stun and to give me hatred back, of course. And I put that on my left click. On my right click, I'm using multi-shot with Fire at Will. Now, why Fire at Will when you have a better rune, which is called Full Broadside, which increases the damage of multi-shot by a shitload? Here's the thing. Multi-shot normally costs 40 hatred. So this rune, Full Broadside, increases its damage by 214 weapon damage, but it still costs 20 hatred. Fire at Will leaves the weapon damage the same, 165. Instead it does it as lightning, but it reduces its cost to 20 hatred. So what happens? Here's what happens. You're pretty much doubling your damage, because 165% weapon damage is not for 40 hatred anymore, it's for 20 hatred. So you can hit it twice and it's gonna do double as much damage. So it's gonna be a lot better than Full Broadside, in my opinion. That's how I use it, and it makes it more reliable for in things like you lagged, or your mouse was somewhere else that you didn't think it was and you missed it. You didn't spend so much hatred. You can go and shoot it again. Okay, for my number one button, I use Cult Drops with Torturous Ground, and I use this simply just to keep enemies away. I like that kind of playstyle of putting traps on the ground, leading them to me, and when they fall my trap, I blow them up. That's how I play this game. So Torturous Ground makes it so they are rooted for 2 seconds, and I can pretty much put as many of these as I want on the ground, because it's really cheap. Next is Smoke Screen. Smoke Screen is a very good skill, and I use it with a passive called Tactical Advantage, which whenever you use Volt, Smoke Screen, or Backflip with Evasive Fire, you gain 60% movement speed for 2 seconds. Now this is extremely good with Smoke Screen, and with the rune that I have is Lingering Fog, which increases its duration for 3 seconds. So this is a really good ability to get away, to avoid damage, and to get away and avoid damage together. So really good skill, and to get mobs off of you. So it's a really good skill. I used to use Volt. I changed this from Volt. I replaced Volt with this because I thought that, well, not I thought, I needed this in Nightmare mode, because it wasn't as easy to avoid damage, it wasn't as easy to get away from mobs. So this made it extremely easy for me. It costs a lot more than Volt, but with this rune and with my passive together, it's worth it. It's worth the amount of discipline that takes. Next is Preparation with Battle Scar. Now Preparation is a really good skill. I've used this for a long time. I used to switch around between this and my companion, but I stopped using my companion because it wasn't that great. I put Battle Scars on this when I got it, which you gain 60% of your life when you use Prep. So you can use it as a second potion, and at the same time to completely restore your discipline, which allows you to do some more Smoke Screen. So it's like super survivability, mobility, and avoidance at the same time. Really good used together with my smoke screen combo that I have. Next is Elemental Arrow. I switch this between Elemental Arrow with Screaming Skull and Impel with Impact, depending on what I need. In some bosses, I need Impact for the stun, the 60% stun. If you hit it once and they don't get stunned, the next Impel is gonna stun him. That's for sure. So I use this simply for the CC. So I use Elemental Arrow with Screaming Skull, which it has a 40% chance to fear your target for 1.5 seconds, and this pierces through targets, does pretty good amount of damage, 155% weapon damage, really good, and it pierces through enemies, so it can fear more than one enemy. So it's really good to keep enemies away from you. Number 4, my number 4 is normally to keep enemies away from me. Now for bosses, I switch some around. For bosses that there is not that much guiding, and there is not that much, well, not that much, there is always guiding with demon hunters, but in bosses that there is not so much that I need to root people to keep them away from me and stuff, I don't use caltrops. Instead I change it for Mark for Death with Mortal Enemy, and this makes it so I do more damage to them and I get healed at the same time. So it marks the enemy, and they take 12% additional damage, and my attacks, generate 3 hatred. So my attacks generate even more hatred. So it's really good for good burst and good constant damage. So I use that for most bosses. Next, my number 4 ability on bosses, I change it for Reign of Vengeance. And Reign of Vengeance, I normally use it with either Beastly Bombs or Stampede. Beastly Bombs, it just does a ton more damage, and it's more control since it's a bunch of beasts like bombing the whole place. It's a lot more control than the normal one. And Stampede is the same thing, does less damage, but it has a knockback. So sometimes when bosses are really annoying and they're really in your ass all the time, it's really hard to get them off your ass, I use Stampede. Okay, for my right click though, for bosses, when there is not that many, or when there is not that many mobs or ads that spawn, I switch my multi-shot for Impel with the stun, which is really good because you can almost perma stun the freaking boss. Okay, so for passives I use Archery, which depending on the weapon that you have, it gives you something, but it's always something really good. If you have a bow, you have a 15% increased damage. If you have a crossbow, you have 50% critical hit damage, and if you have a hand crossbow, 10% critical hit chance. So I usually go for hand crossbows. I like the fast spamming of skills, so I go for dual hand crossbows. But it's not always, you can't always have it. Like sometimes you get like right now I have a really good bow because that was like the one upgrade that I got. Okay, and then I have my other passive is Steady Aim. Steady Aim is as long as there is not enemies within 10 yards, your damage increased by 20%. There is normally no enemies within 10 yards unless they just barely teleported to me. But I normally keep a caltrops on my feet most of the time. So when they teleport to me, they get instantly rooted, so I can get away from them fast. Then Tactical Advantage is very good combo with Smoke Screen, with the long smoke screen. So whenever you use Volt Smoke Screen or Backflip, your movement speed is increased by 60% for 2 seconds. Really good to get away, and at the same time really good to avoid damage. And things like if you're gonna get frozen, like those little ball things that spawns around you and then they explode and you freeze, you can use this right before they explode and you're not gonna get frozen or taking damage. If a boss or something teleports to you, you can use this and their hit is not, you're not gonna take damage from their hit, and at the same time you're gonna be able to get away. So that's pretty much it. This is these are my builds for a Nightmare. I'm just barely gonna start Hell, so yeah, things are probably gonna change in Hell too, just like how they did from normal to Nightmare. So I'm gonna, when I finish Hell, I'll show you guys all the changes that I did. I hope you like this video. Subscribe if you want to. Twitter, Facebook. Until the next one, good hunting.